When I was trying to come up with what I'd do for this video, which is the first video on this channel in quite a long while, I was keeping about 3 to 4 potential scripts in mind, even most of the way through revisions. Despite this, I always kept coming back to this one, not because it's the most interesting topic out of them, or even necessarily the most relevant, but the one I find the most personally irritating. I just wanted to let you know that in the end, this video primarily exists because I'm mad about things nobody cares about and want to rant in a manner that might end in some people actually hearing it and listening. So, without further ado, my least favorite phrase in all of the D&D world. Playing your alignment. In case you've never heard the term used before, playing your alignment is a concept used in D&D role-playing that says the actions of a player character in-game should reflect and uphold the alignment they have, likely the alignment they were created with. In practice, it's more often used as an admonishment of someone acting out of character or doing something that those around the player find disagrees with their alignment. The words "play your alignment" don't even necessarily have to be said, and most of the time they aren't. If you've played for long enough, you've probably been at the table when, for example, someone's paladin is having an argument with an innkeeper and is just about to take it outside when someone else at the table goes, "Hey, you're lawful good, remember?" I already have problems here as little as we've discussed, and I want to start with what I feel is one of the root causes of the playing your alignment mentality. A lot of the time, for the sake of simplicity, we tend to think of alignments in this sort of archetypical sense, where belonging to a specific alignment boxes that character into a certain expected behavior set. I think there are 2 major causes of this mindset, one being in how we define the boundaries of our alignments, and the other being how we treat alignment as the game is in session. Right now, let's focus on the way we set the boundaries of our alignments. Most of the time, we see them as being narrow and having concrete definition, leading to this world where the 4 corner alignments only exist in their most extreme representations, with all chaotic good characters being XPs of Robin Hood, thumbing their nose at the law while standing up for the common man, and all chaotic evil characters being rampaging, destructive monsters with absolutely no concern for life, sentient or otherwise. It's this simplistic view of the system as a whole that creates this atmosphere where you can know a character's specific behavior set just from their alignment, rather than simply their overall beliefs. So, instead of having hard definitions like good characters always do the right thing and chaotic characters don't respect the law or authority, let's try defining them like good characters try to do what they feel is right, and chaotic characters want to do what they feel like doing. It's a small change, but one I feel is meaningful, first because it puts the emphasis on a character's values instead of their actions, and second because it allows for a bit of wiggle room when a character might not fully embody the paragon of an archetype, but you still feel they belong there. One of the primary perpetrators of this archetypical mindset is actually the rulebooks themselves, as exemplified in the 3rd edition Player's Handbook. They do make sure to mention that individuals vary significantly in how they express their alignment and that few people are consistent in expressing their alignment, but they describe each alignment using archetypes and even go as far as to name these archetypes, giving them titles like Crusader, Rebel, or Malefactor. In later editions, 5th, the descriptions are notably more brief and simply give a summary of what basic information can be gleaned from the alignment. Not that I really agree with all of these descriptions regardless, but neutral and evil alignments are both complicated and not the topic today. The other problem I mentioned is a lot harder to deal with since there's no simple fix like just being less rigid with the categories. Dealing with alignment of player characters while the game is in session is a tricky subject at best, and a lot of the time groups just won't talk about it at all. The players will give their characters an alignment at creation and then spend the rest of the game just doing whatever they feel is right without any concern as to their alignment, and the DM just shrugs their shoulders and lets it happen because it's less complicated this way. If you want to play that way, that's your bag, and I won't say you're wrong. However, for the sake of this argument, we're going to move forward with the assumption that we want our alignments to mean something during the game. So we want alignment to have some kind of effect on the game. Often when we're trying to keep the alignment of our characters in mind, we end up enforcing that alignment on others and ourselves whenever we feel they're deviating from it. This leads to a scenario where the only correct way to play is to base all your actions off of your alignment with complete consistency, which is, well, boring. The same passage from the book I paraphrased earlier does say that individuals are rarely consistent in expressing their alignment, but we tend to forget about that during the game. Going back to those groups that simply choose to forget about player alignments, I'd say most of the time they have the right idea. Live and let live is a much more fun way to play than policing your own character expression. I'd rather deal with alignment with a light touch rather than forgetting about it completely, but we'll go into my preferred solution for this whole problem later. Again though, all this talk about having more complicated and complex alignment depends on your playstyle and desired game interaction. If you want a simple, straightforward game due to time constraints or style preferences, then skimping on characterization in order to make it simpler might be something you want to do, and it's fine if you enjoy the game that way. Even so, however, I still have further problems with this idea of playing your alignment, and in order to talk about it, we need to go into how alignment functions as a game mechanic. So, on a fundamental level, alignment serves as a way of connecting the role-playing done in the game to the game's mechanics, which allows the personality and actions of its characters to correspond with their tactical options, abilities, and the consequences they see for those actions. A character who does bad things is weak to holy magic because their spirit is corrupted, represented in the mechanics of the game by that character being evil, and the holy magic being strong against things that are defined as evil. It's primarily a mechanic, sure, existing in the mechanical space, but it deals with how characters interact with one another in the role-playing space. The misstep, in my mind, occurs in how we interpret this system, and how much power we give it over our actions as players. A lot of players allow alignment to completely dictate their actions, trying to embody how their alignment should act in an endeavor to fulfill the role they've chosen for themselves and maintain that character's alignment. Most of the time, this mindset isn't even really conscious, instead being a sort of unstated conclusion in how we come up with and think about characters and their values, but that's a topic for a different video. In the immediate space, instead of treating alignment like a blueprint that dictates how a character should act, I believe it should be treated as a reactionary system, as a representation of the character's overall characterization that changes to reflect significant alterations in that character's behavior set. It's one of the few instances in which I wish people treated tabletop games more like some of the video games based off of their successes, like the systems in Fallout, Knights of the Old Republic, and Infamous that align the player based on their actions. Obviously, in D&D, we need to start somewhere other than the direct middle. Starting everyone at true neutral would probably be pretty dull, but after creation, a system in which your alignment effectively adjusts as you progress through the world and make decisions gives your actions just that little bit more weight and allows your characterization to shift as you play. Alignment wouldn't actually be slowly shifting, since having to keep track of good points and log points or whatever would be really dull and tedious, but the point is more that if a character's net actions subvert their alignment rather than upholding it for a sufficiently long period of time, then either that player or their DM should think about changing the character's alignment. That sufficient length of time is important, as a change in alignment should reflect a global change in a character's worldview and actions, and overlook outlying actions that don't really signify any kind of major change. Otherwise, we end up with the same problem we were trying to curb, with players afraid to do anything off-message in order to preserve the alignment they want for their character. In the real world, people sometimes do things that conflict with their morals and values without completely losing said morals and values, and if we want that kind of nuance in our game system, we have to reflect it in how the system is constructed. By doing this, we allow for characters to exist in more complexity without having to completely ignore alignment altogether or put it aside in certain circumstances. We are allowed to present flawed characters and explore interesting ideas that exist outside archetype, outside the traditional black and white values used in the game, ensuring that we can play characters outside the neutral cross without being boring and predictable. In the end, I suppose what really bugs me about playing your alignment, both in the game and in the meta, isn't that it says there's a wrong way to play a character, because there certainly is. Players can truly be out of character if they act without good reason, basing in-game actions on wish fulfillment or just a desire to goof around in situations where their characters wouldn't as they've been defined so far. If you're playing in a game that values characterization, that can be frustrating, and I'd say it's the wrong way to play if you're in that group. No, the problem I have is more that playing your alignment infers there's a wrong way to interpret one's own character. Returning to something I said at the beginning of this video, instead of saying, "Hey, you're lawful good, remember?" say, "Would your character really do that?" And if their answer is yes, I don't see a problem. What do you guys think? I'd love to hear your opinions and any rebuttals on this issue, so please keep the discussion going in the comments.